Here comes Grim.
It was Karl Marx who said that history repeats itself, first as tragedy and then as farce. What Marx was referring to was that material circumstances are different in subsequent times. So treating things the same way, one time after another, doesn't tend to work out the same way. And the material circumstances in which we find ourselves are quite different to how they were 10 years ago. Games media now is a joke. It is dying. This is part of the reason that they're so desperate to fan the flames for controversy this time around, whatever they said last time around. They need the hate clicks. That's why they've continued to mention Gamergate in articles for a decade. They won Gamergate, but they don't have the cultural pull that they once did. A whole new media ecosystem exists, to be fair, also full of grifters online who feed on drama and conflict for clicks, which is what also helped blow this whole mess up. And honestly, these people are no better than games media itself. And we all should know better and seek out quality content, but algorithmo does not allow us to. Lots of these people who are making a fuss this time around online are doing so because it pays, and they want to become big names the way that some people did through Gamergate 1 back in the day. You also have all the people who have become associated with Comicsgate and everything else, and everything that came after, ready to contribute and blow up the message on alt media. You also have a games industry that is struggling, needing to make cuts, which makes these pointless petty bourgeois consultancies vulnerable. And we also have similar groups, similar demands, similar notes, being exposed in Disney and other areas. Then you have people like me, and I would say groups like Film Threat and so on that are much more old school, left, anti-censorship, who find all of this rather boggling and upsetting and just want better content. So a lot is different, but a lot is the same too. People apparently learned nothing from Gamergate 1. We still see people in the media and elsewhere elevating trolls and ignoring serious interlocutors, and favouring the trolls and whatever they can spin as being bigoted or harassment, while ignoring everything else. We still see companies and the games media trying to paint all gamers, their own core audience, as reactionary, homogenous, cis-het white men, as if that was a condemnation in and of itself. Cannibalizing your own audience has never made sense. It didn't make sense 10 years ago. It doesn't make sense now. And I mean, this all started with them trying to censor a Brazilian Steam curator. And there is a rainbow coalition of people standing against them who just want good games, less interference. They don't want artificial criteria. They don't want even more studio notes. When have studio notes ever made a project better rather than worse? Rumblings about Sweet Baby go back some way. There's a pre-existing context of unaddressed discontent and then a sparking event, exactly as happened before. The culprits in this instance brought the backlash upon themselves, just as they did back then, by trying to silence and censor criticism. The internet treats censorship as damage and roots around it. The internet may be a crippled and deformed beast compared to what it used to be back in the day, but this is still broadly true. Now, rumblings about opaque consultancies fucking up games go back as far as Gamergate. Silverstring Media, which has turned up in the discourse around this fuss, was implicated in all kinds of bullshit back then, and appeared like Banquo's ghost at the feast in many games and companies that were the worst. Literally the worst. Briefly, as an aside, this conspiratorial nonsense really isn't helping anybody. Does anyone remember Seattle for Truth, who tried to weave Gamergate into his personal pantheon of conspiracy nonsense, largely based around 9/11? He was obsessed with the idea that the government was somehow involved in games too, so let's try not to be like Seattle for Truth, who ended up snapping and killing his own father because he didn't agree with his conspiracy theories, shall we? If Homeland Security or whoever else is funding research into online extremism, that shit started because jihadis and others really were, criminal enterprises as well, really were using in-game chat features to organise and communicate as a way of doing so away from prying eyes. So don't lose your marbles by that rabbit hole. We've had a media blitz again, which is very similar, just like the gamers are dead, repeating the same talking points, having apparently done no research whatsoever, and somehow being surprised that nobody wants to talk to them. It's the hypocrisy that gets me. To take just one example, there was nary a peep about, say, Troy Levitt leaving Hogwarts Legacy under a cloud of harassment and inaccurate reporting about his past, painting him as a Gamergater. No one seemed to give a toss about that. Barely a mention of the harassment of streamers who were playing Hogwarts Legacy or getting shit on social media for playing it. There was an organised boycott of Hogwarts Legacy, and not that it did any good, but with barely a peep of condemnation from games media, and yet they're all over this. And personally, I don't much care for boycotts or boycotts, at least not organised ones. As I said, it's the hypocrisy that gets me. These people are claiming boycotts are bad out of one side of their mouth, and then just reporting the facts or positively supporting such boycotts out of the other side of their mouth. If it's okay for pro-trans people to boycott Hogwarts Legacy on the basis of a fairly weak link to the author and her statements being taken in the most uncharitable way possible, then it should be fine for, even if they were right-wingers, even if they were reactionaries, it should be fine for them to boycott and so on as well. There's no consistency here. It's okay when we do it, isn't good. There's wall-to-wall reporting when someone criticizes pseudo-progressive devs and consultants, but almost nothing when someone is harassed under false accusations to the point of suicide. Hell, even that guy's sister is neck-deep in the work of the kinds of people who harassed her sibling to death. I mean, oof. I find all of this tremendously affecting and depressing, which is why I'm trying to stay out of it, but people keep asking for my opinions. When I wrote Inside Gamergate, it was so that we would have a somewhat accurate record in the face of mass censorship, biased reporting, historical revisionism, and corruption in institutions like Wikipedia. My effort, and I'm afraid that of others, like Tachyon Blue and so on, did no good whatsoever. Censorious, petty bourgeois cretins like Sweet Baby and many other similar groups over the last decade or so have also tainted the reputation of the political left, despite their ideas and their actions being antithetical to left-wing thought. They don't seek equality, they seek revenge. They don't seek to get rid of any real or imagined racial hierarchy, but rather just to invert it. Again, all of this is against left-wing political philosophy. These people are staunchly middle class with the petty social pecking order concerns of middle-class curtain twitchers and the small c conservatism of the same. Their concerns are not those of the working class or the creative class, the artisan class, if you will. They take money from the pockets of people who actually produce things and make their lives more difficult and stifle their creativity with unchallengeable excuses. Nobody with left-wing credentials should be siding with Sweet Baby and their blatant racism, sexism and other prejudice, or that of the games media that, without irony, expresses that you cannot be racist to white people. Nobody should be siding with censors offering notes on work, or people whose presence is not creating diversity but rather stifling it by making every single product the same mix. Yet this is the image people have of the left, and whatever old school left is left seems to be largely running scared of these bigots, and not sadly without reason. If opposition to these consultancies and their ilk seems or sounds reactionary or right-wing to whatever extent it is, I think it's because of this, and why voices like mine are important criticisms from the left, even if it's just pissing in the wind. We should not allow the left to be characterized by these mirror universe clansmen and censors when our legacy on the left is one of fairness, equality, and free expression. Honestly, this furore makes no real difference. To win, gamers, all you have to do is not buy games that have been fucked with in this way. Don't endorse with your hard-won dollary-doos those who desecrate the creatives of the past and the present and their work. Last time all of this nonsense hit me so hard because of the cowardice of my own peers in the creative space, that they failed to stand up to this same bullshit back then, and in fact joined the mob, the actual mob that was anti-Gamergate. And this despite experiences with the likes of pat-pulling Jack Thompson et al. Fortunately, I have no such illusions at this time, hence the appeal I'm making to actual consumers. Just don't buy this shit, and things will change and sort themselves out. That's why they're in such a panic. They're vulnerable. The bullshit artists with bullshit jobs know they're extraneous, and what's left of the games media is trying to get your hate clicks. So while I don't like boycotts, just do that, and otherwise let the story die. Just keep each other aware of where the bullshit is, avoid it, and you'll win. Zang.
Flick pig. There's no big story to this, even the title's just a way to get away with writing fuck pig. It's not some earth-shaking attempt to thrust upon you the evils of meat-eating. I eat meat because it's fucking delicious. David Cameron got me thinking about pigs. Then I got into some arguments with vegans. Then I made a horror dungeon game in which you play pigs trying to escape a horrible, fantastical slaughterhouse. That's about it. If that upsets you, do one. A print-and-play OSR dungeon crawl with pigs. Available at post-mort.com and drive-through RPG.